This gospel healing story reminds me of another story by Father Anthony de Mello, S.J., an Indian Jesuit. The story is set in one of the big cities of India. It is about a woman with a child in her arm who stopped by a bakery or a bake shop and started tapping at the glass window in order to call attention and to beg for food. Just at that time, the bake shop owner himself happened to be fixing up the newly baked loaves of bread early in the morning. The man turned his eyes to the beggar and motioned with his hand to indicate that beggars were not allowed to loiter in front of the shop. The woman used her hand to do a sign language, knowing that she could not be heard outside by the shopkeeper. She pointed at her little child, and then she pursed her 5 fingers to point at her mouth, to say, "Please, sir, a little food for my little one." But she got the same hand sign from the man, who was now waving his hand, waving her away to say, "Get away from here." Then the man proceeded with his task, and this time loaded more delectable pastries on the show windows racks. But to the baker's surprise, the woman was still there. When their eyes met, the woman did the same gesture all over again. And the baker repeated his earlier gesture, but this time accompanied by an angry face to convey a more emphatic message: "Get off right now." But she just continued to stand there under the sweltering heat of the sun. Now, totally annoyed at this hard-headed woman, the bake shop owner opened the glass swing door and yelled at her. She continued to plead like a stubborn dog that refused to leave empty-handed. So mad was the bake shop owner. You know what he did? He spat right smack at the face of the woman and said, "You are so hard-headed, that's what you deserve." The man then slammed the door and went back in. But the woman did not budge. A few moments later, the man started to feel guilty about the way he had treated the beggar. After taking a few deep breaths, he regained his composure. He looked outside, and sure enough, she was still there, standing patiently under the heat of the sun with a child in her arm. And so, he went out and forced himself to calm down as he tried to calmly explain to the woman, "Lady, you are so stubborn. What can I do to make you leave? I am upset because you are blocking my clients." The woman raised her eyes with no trace of anger at all for the insult that she had received. And she said, "Sir, you already gave me what I deserved. But can I please have a little piece of bread for my hungry child?" The request shook the bake shop owner, who, instead of yelling again, went back inside the shop, took a little paper bag, and filled it with soft buns. He stepped out of his shop and said, "I am sorry for what I did to you a while ago. Here are some fresh buns for you and your child." And the woman said, "Thank you, sir. May God reward you for your kindness." You see why today's gospel reminded me of that story. The Canaanite woman character in today's gospel also got what she wanted through persistence. But honestly, I'm a little bit puzzled about what Jesus said to her. He said, "Woman, how great is your faith?" And my reaction to that is, what faith was Jesus talking about? The woman was introduced as a Canaanite woman, meaning she was a pagan or a non-Israelite. In short, she was not a fellow believer of the Jews in Yahweh, God of Israel. Well, I guess what Jesus really meant was, how great is your love? Because it was her love for her daughter that made her persistent. And she eventually got what she asked for because she did not claim it as a right in the first place. She was even willing to wait until all the children of the master had been fed. She did not mind waiting, even if she would end up with nothing but crumbs or scraps of leftover. She said that, "Sir, even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the master's table." Her way of saying, "I know, sir, I am not demanding anything I am entitled to, just in case you might have some scraps." Ironically, it is precisely this self-deprecating attitude that paved the way for the grace that she prayed for. You know, two virtues are emphasized by this gospel. First, persistence, and second, humility. Persistence. She does not give up easily, even after several instances of rejection. Once by the disciples and twice by Jesus himself. She wasn't asking for herself. She was pleading for her daughter. There is another story about a persistent widow in the Gospel of St. Luke who did not stop pestering an unjust judge until she was able to get justice. You see, if you want to achieve something, you have to will it first. Second, humility. This is about the sense of grace as against the sense of entitlement. Like I said, she wasn't insisting on an entitlement. She was well aware of the fact that she was a foreigner, that she was a non-Israelite, that she did not worship the same God. What Jesus said to the Canaanite woman was actually very insulting. It is not right to take food from the master's table and throw it to the dogs. I would have reacted to Jesus and said, "Sobra naman yan, Lord." And yet, the woman took no offense at it. It was her love for the daughter that could make her swallow even an insult. And this is what deeply moves Jesus and makes him say, "Woman, how great is your faith." You know, this story also reminds me of the Novena Church in Singapore. If you have been to Singapore, you know that they have the equivalent of our Baclaran Church. But the difference in Singapore is, if you attend Mass there, chances are that you will be with many Hindus and Buddhists and Muslims who also attend Mass and seek favors from God through the Blessed Mother. who is so well known in Singapore as a powerful intercessor. Even the non-Christians turn to her when they are desperate. Later, they become regular churchgoers. And some of them even ask voluntarily for baptism. I don't know how true, but they say Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Singapore has become the most effective evangelizer. Brothers and sisters, on this day that we celebrate the oldest church dedicated to the honor of the Mother of Jesus, I would find it understandable why many of us run to the Blessed Mother, especially during these uncertain times. I think it is through John's story of the wedding feast at Cana that we have developed the image of Mary as somewhat also like that persistent Canaanite woman in our gospel today, whose ardent request the Lord could not possibly turn down.